Tobias Durand never thought a simple errand would change his life. He was out buying a pen to sign the divorce papers his wife had served him when he absent-mindedly stepped into the road. Before he could react, a car hit him. When he woke up in the hospital, a woman stood at his bedside, looking worried. Her name was Almut, a former figure skater who had become a chef. She had been the one driving the car. Feeling guilty, she insisted on making it up to him. "Let me cook for you and your wife," she said. Tobias didn't correct her. He didn't tell her he was already alone. On the night of the dinner, he arrived at the restaurant alone and finally told her the truth. He was getting divorced. Almut didn't offer sympathy, and she didn't try to make things less painful. Instead, she made him laugh. That night, after dinner, they went back to her apartment. One moment led to another, and soon, their loneliness brought them together. The next morning, Almut made breakfast, showing Tobias the best way to crack an egg. He had never thought such a simple moment could feel so intimate. A few weeks later, they moved in together. Time passed, and their love deepened. Tobias had never felt so alive. But one night, he told Almut that he wanted a family with her someday. Almut's face turned cold. "That's not me," she said. "I can't make that kind of promise." Her words cut deep. Tobias left without another word. Days later, at a baby shower for one of Almut's co-workers, he finally found the courage to face her again. He apologized for the way he had brought it up, but he also told her the truth. She had hurt him. Then he told her something else. He loved her. Not because of what the future might hold, but because of what they had right now. Almut hesitated. Then, with a sigh, admitted she loved him too. For a while, happiness returned. But life had other plans. Almut started feeling strange pains in her abdomen. First, she ignored them, but they grew worse. When she finally went to the doctor, the news shattered them. Ovarian cancer. The doctors recommended a hysterectomy. It would save her life, but it would also mean she could never have children. Tobias held her hand, promising to support whatever choice she made. After sleepless nights filled with tears, she decided on a partial hysterectomy, leaving a small chance for the future. The cancer went into remission. Then, against all odds, Almut became pregnant. On New Year's Eve, when Almut went into labor, Tobias rushed her to the hospital. But they were sent home. She wasn't ready yet. They spent the night laughing, waiting together. Hours later, as they tried to get back to the hospital, traffic trapped them on the road. And so, in a tiny petrol station bathroom, their daughter Ella was born. Tobias held Almut and their newborn daughter in his arms, overwhelmed with love. For 3 years, life was beautiful. Almut's restaurant flourished, and their little family thrived in a small cottage surrounded by nature. Tobias watched Almut teach Ella to cook, watched their daughter grow up surrounded by warmth and love. Then, one day, the pain returned. This time, it was worse. The cancer was back. Stage 3. The doctors told them she had 2 choices: undergo aggressive chemotherapy and hope for more time, or spend her final months making memories instead of fighting a battle she might lose anyway. Almut looked at Tobias with tears in her eyes. 6 to 8 amazing months with you and Ella? Or a year where I'm too weak to even hold her? Tobias was broken. He couldn't bear to let her go. In desperation, he proposed. "Marry me," he whispered. Almut smiled through her tears. "Then I'll fight," she said. As she started treatment, an unexpected invitation arrived. An opportunity to compete in the Bocuse d'Or, one of the most prestigious cooking competitions in the world. Cooking had always been her passion. It was what made her feel alive. Despite her illness, she agreed to compete. But when the doctors told her the treatment wasn't working, she made a painful decision. In secret, she stopped chemotherapy and focused on training. When Tobias found out, he was furious. "You're choosing this over us?" he asked, his voice shaking. Almut's eyes filled with tears. "I'm choosing the only thing I have left. I don't want Ella to remember me as a sick woman who faded away. I want her to be proud of me." Tobias said nothing. He simply held her. He hated that she was right. In June, Tobias and Ella watched Almut compete in Italy. She pushed herself to the limit, cooking like her life depended on it. But near the end, her body started failing. Her hands trembled, her vision blurred. Before she collapsed, her assistant, Jade, stepped in, finishing their final dish just in time. Almut didn't stay to see if she had won. She had chosen something else. That night, she took Tobias and Ella ice skating. For the first time in years, she stepped onto the ice, gliding smoothly, just as she had when she was young. Tobias watched her twirl, laughter spilling from her lips. He held Ella's hand, knowing these moments were precious. A few months later, on a quiet morning, Tobias and Ella walked back from the chicken coop, their new dog trotting beside them. In the kitchen, Tobias cracked an egg, then handed one to Ella. "Just like Mama taught me," he said softly. Ella cracked the egg, a small, perfect break. She looked up at him and smiled. And in that moment, Almut lived on.